Guys, I'd like to talk a bit about maybe the purpose behind Odinism.
Yeah, well, Odinism it serves the purpose of any religion. It will give us, the individual who follows it, a feeling and a sense of his place within the whole scheme of things, creation, the multiverse, even within his place in society, as an individual, as part of a group of individuals, as part of his community. It integrates all, or it should, when correctly practiced, all aspects of one's life. That's you can say an inner life, which is your more spiritual aspirations, yearnings, questings, and then the outer life, the communal life, how you interact with other people, how you can make sense of the planet even we inhabit, the environment, our relationship with every other aspect of life. And Odinism, being a religion, combines these various strands of life, binds together into one. Now, Odinism, being the natural, organic faith of the people of Northern Europe, or the Indo-European peoples, it is naturally more geared for them to access this energy, this flow, something beyond everyday life, but it can also impact everyday life. It affects your outlook and as I've said before, your reaction and interaction with those around you, the society around you. So it provides also a sustenance for the spiritual side of an individual, and a code of living for our outward mundane aspect.
What are some of the ethics and values of Odinism?
The ethics and values of Odinism were actually codified early in the 70s. In fact, I want to read them as they were directly collected. And they're called the 9 charges. Now, this is really, it shouldn't be considered as, in a way, as a 10 commandments. It's not a list of thou shalt nots, which if you break, apparently you would have some drastic retribution in an afterlife. But these provide a way of interacting, a way of living life. These were codified at the formation of the Odinic Rite, and they come in two parts. There's the noble virtues. Now I'll read these out. Courage, fidelity, industriousness, truth, discipline, self-reliance, honour, hospitality, and perseverance. Now, if everyone, if these are considered individually, at a later time, you will see how these are all very desirable virtues to live your life by. Not one of these can be really seen as anything but very positive, not just for an individual's life, but for your interaction with the rest of society, work, friends, family. The 9 charges, as they were taken, they may sound somewhat archaic in their language, but I think when you study them, and you'll see beyond the mere terminology and see the underlying meaning, which actually transcends time. It's just obviously anything written is going to be solidified in its language of the time. So our first charge, or the first charge of Odinism, is to maintain candour and fidelity in love and devotion to tried friends. And it adds here, though he strike me, I will do him no scathe. Obviously with that, this is teaching how among your own social acquaintances and family there is an interaction of trust, love, loyalty, and even at times there are obviously, in an imperfect world, imperfect society, there will be frictions even between family and friends. But it's showing here that you will not seek to needlessly harm them. You will not needlessly respond to every friction situation. Never to make a wrongsome oath, for great and grim is the reward for breaking of a plighted troth. Again, this is against, if you give your word, mean your word. When you give an oath, realise it's important. And by learning such things, your whole way of life becomes more sincere. We get away from this idea of fast values, fast food, fast entertainment, fast values. At one point it used to be said, my word is my bond. People didn't need so many contracts because they lived by a more honourable and truthful code. If you deliberately break a word, it can cause harm to other people, but you have lessened yourself as an individual. So truth and maintaining your honour and your oath is a very important way to live in society and with yourself. To deal not hardly with the humble and lowly is the third charge. To remember the respect which is due to great age. These are all, I think, fairly self-explanatory. To suffer no evil, to go unremedied, and to fight against the enemies of family, nation, and faith. My foes I will fight in the field, nor will I be burnt in my house. These really are saying, some people may say this is needlessly warlike. We're not suggesting that at all, but within all society, all nature, there are certain things we have to oppose to the best of our abilities. And I will not be burnt in my house. I'm not going to be surprised. I will confront danger, if you like, in any form. I will confront that which opposes me. I will not just sit back and do nothing and take a passive approach until it's too late. As it's described here, burnt in my house, obviously not literal. To succour the friendliness, but put no faith in the pledged word of a stranger people. Again, this realises that different cultures have different interpretations, different ways. So while we can hope for relationships of mutual respect with other societies, other cultures, we should also be very careful that we don't seek to place upon them the values we hold, and thereby, when they're clearly not going to respond in the way or react in the way we might, needless conflict arises. So this to put no trust in means, yes, we don't seek to be deliberately hostile, but we're aware different people have different ways, and we can't necessarily rely on them to respond in a way we would feel akin to. In other words, with your own people who have had that heritage, shared experience, you are naturally going to feel more able to be in kinship with them.
Kind of reminds me of that Roger Kipling's Strangers at the Gate.
Yeah, I think Kipling really, a lot of Kipling's poetry is very, it's kind of on this vein where he's trying to point out how, you have to realise that other cultures are very different to you. They've had different experiences for millennia, which has shaped them. And of course, he was a man who was widely travelled and respected deeply, very deeply, other cultures, but recognised, yes, there are these differences. And actually, in recognising these differences, this actually is showing respect for other cultures as well as respect for yourself. To try and assume that all branches of the human family, as it were, are going to be identical or should be, is actually to show great disrespect and crushes uniqueness and diversity and the interest and vibrancy which arises from a diversity of patterns, of peoples. So yeah, very much like some of Kipling's words. A lot of Odinists actually find Kipling among their favourite poets, although he's become something somewhat unpopular in recent times. The seventh charge, as was formulated If I hear the fool's word of a drunken man, I will not strive. For many a grief and very death groweth from out of such things. And basically, again, this is another way of acting in a social context, and it's not necessarily meaning you have to ignore a drunken man. It's just foolish words. Very often within society, interaction with family, friends, a foolish word can be taken out of context, focused upon, and then a whole chain of events of conflicts, of dislikes can take place. Whereas if we can, if you like, rise above and sometimes accept the fact that people at times are going to make foolish comments, we don't have to totally focus on this, and we can override that. And it's really leading again to, it's learning self-moderation as well, self-discipline, perseverance, and in general will lead to more harmonious interaction with those around us. Obviously, it's not saying you must never react, because obviously you do, as was in charge 5, to suffer no evil. But this just means that you become a person who is not going to overreact at every foolish comment you hear, because in society you hear many, and it gives the example of a drunken word, because obviously a lot of stupidity is spoken under the influence of alcohol. If we took note of every slight or every foolish phrase, term given, we could be in a state of continual conflict, social conflict. Obviously not desirable for the individual or society as a whole. Now the 8th charge, to give kind heed to dead men, straw dead, sea dead, or sword dead. Again, it can be seen as just a fairly, code of decency, which comes down into don't speak ill of the dead for one reason, they can't defend themselves. But it's also a much deeper spiritual level here, in that those who have dead, their consciousness is awakened. The energy directed towards them in this realm actually impacts their existence in the after this realm, or afterlife, as people have called it, or the next stage of existence. Death being obviously no more than a change in energy. It's a process, it's not an end. That's what I'm trying to get at here. So, but what happens on this realm also impacts into the other realms, the realm of the dead. So by being kind, speaking kindly of those who have passed into this realm, you can actually benefit them. So to give kind heed obviously helps them on that stage of existence or life's journey. And the final charge, to abide by the enactments of lawful authority and to bear with courage the decrees of the norns. Now, I'll just return this. I think really that basically speaks for itself, that if we consider existence, the orlog, which basically sets the rules for existence, like a game, weird is the way we play the game, or live within laws which we can't alter. The laws of nature are immutable and eternal, but within we do have a choice how we meet these conditions. Whatever our fate, whatever our conditions are, we have a choice how we're going to live, even though obviously we can't affect the total ultimate outcomes. We are bound within nature. So the dealings, that the norms, the circumstances that has been dealt out to us, we should face them with courage and as far as possible, optimism. And this basically would form the charges, and the virtues would form the foundation of the Odinist ethical system.
Is there a central idea or concept that these morals and values are based on?
Yeah, Odinism really adheres to an aristocratic principle. The idea that as expressions, as manifestations of the gods, or the god energy, the god force in the world of form, we have a nobility. But that is our potential. But we should strive. We strive to lead a noble life, an aristocratic life, and we accept the fact that in many ways, in most ways, man is not equal. There is inequality, and this shouldn't be reacted to with negativity. It's actually something to embrace and accept, because it allows everyone at whatever stage of their journey, their evolution, providing they strive to be the best they can be. That's an aristocratic drive. Whatever level they're at, if they can be the best they can, then that is that's marvelous. That's striving. That's leading an aristocratic, or following an aristocratic impulse. In time, over the many lifetimes, many incarnations, people will evolve, they spiritually unfold. But this notion of equality is clearly ludicrous, that people are clearly not equal. Physically, people are not equal. Their mental capacities aren't equal. Their spiritual development isn't equal. It doesn't mean that someone who is more highly developed or capable is inherently better. It just means you're not equal. Diversity. We are unique, diverse, and the only we've seen with terrible results on society or humanity at large, doctrines which have tried to enforce equality. It doesn't exist, it's an unnatural concept, but in trying to enforce it, there's been great harms. Communism has tried to enforce this. Very harmful systems. Christianity has preached this system. Although none of these doctrines which preach are actually put it into practice, because it can't be, and it's used then as a kind of a trick. It's like almost like a drug for an unknowing public. You're all equal. It sounds alluring to the unknowing. Does that answer anything else?
This kind of relates back to the aristocratic principles which the ethics and morals are set around. Is Odinism a warrior faith? Is it just a faith for warriors?
No, and this is a common misconception. Of course, the martial or the warrior aspect there is an aspect of that, and it's because that's an aspect of existence. But it is one aspect. It's not the sum total. So no, it is not purely a warrior faith. It is a faith which covers every other element of healing, healing of existence. So there would be room for healing. There's room for the farmers, the growers, the builders, the artists, the mothers, the children. The warrior aspect is one of many aspects, one of a whole. If it purely was concentrating on that, it would be very unbalanced, totally out of balance. And Odinism is something which balances, or seeks to balance, or provides a way of balancing all aspects of life, of existence. And that comes down to your everyday mundane existence, but also the spiritual existence. So while the warrior aspect is present, and while we do pay heed and honour to those, the warriors who will defend when time is needed. It isn't purely a warrior faith, no, not at all.
You want to talk a bit about the runes?
Yeah, the runes, who many people, even non-Odinists, have actually heard of the runes. The runes are an integral part of Odinism. Essentially what they are depictions of energy, or creative energies, or neutral energies, because they can be destructive or creative. So they are depictions of the streams of energies which flow through creation, and obviously through every aspect and every being in creation, including ourselves. In the myths, they were won by Odin, discovered by Odin, mythologically expressing that he had attained a superconscious awareness and discovered the runes. He discovered the patterns of life, of the energies of life. So for us, they can have many layers of use and meaning. They were and can still be used purely as a mundane alphabet, and they were at times. They obviously have their symbolic meanings, just as the Odal rune, for instance, symbolically summons up the image of the homeland, the blood, your blood connection with the homeland. So it's a whole series of images and meanings just symbolized. But also on other levels, by following the runes, studying and learning their energies, their teachings, it's a path, a spiritual path, and some could say a mental path towards also a higher awareness. They're meditation tools as well. So they're very much a part of both personal, internal practice for an individual Odinist, and of course they're used in communal ritual worship, symbolism.
Does an Odinist have to have an intricate understanding of runes to be classified as an Odinist?
No. They're not they're a part of, but they're not the whole of Odinism. And while it's desirable that people, if they feel will, obviously learn as much as they can, no, it isn't. It isn't absolutely necessary. That's a common mistake, I think, that people seem to believe they have to know about every single aspect. You're not. It takes it would take many lifetimes, but to know what they are basically is desirable. But to have an absolute intricate knowledge, it isn't necessary. In fact, in this whole area, which we could sort of, this is touching on esoteric areas. I would say magic. The term is so often misused, or there's so many negative or confused things attached to it. I almost don't like using the term, but it is not necessary for everyone to be esoterically advanced or to be a magician, etc. And it never was. I mean, this idea on a communal level, quite seriously, the day-to-day business of living, it takes up a lot of time, and you could not have a whole society who was, I should just be studying the runes today. There would be no crops, there would be nothing done. And even, today, it's perhaps the way we work has changed, but we still need to have builders, the growers, the builders. So the runes are an internal part. I mean, it's probably beneficial if each Odinist will set some time if he can, or she can, just to begin to travel that path, and in blot our Odinist worship, they form an essential and needed part. But not everybody has to be a great scholar, because I'll also say this: someone who's got no religious impulse at all, let alone Odinism, someone who could come from an entirely different folk group and culture, could academically be an expert runically, but they wouldn't be able to access the inner energy and the inner meaning because they're not Odinists.
What are some of the activities that center around a religious life for an Odinist?
Because religion really binds all aspects of life, on the first level of answer is that whatever one does, trying to live according to the charges and virtues in everything you do, even that first of all means your life is geared towards religious living. So it's not a case of this isn't religious, this is as such. You can't break down compartments in your life. Right now, this is fun. This is just purely social fun. There's no religious impact, because even having fun and enjoy is part of our nature.